My name is Gwen Wood, and I am a research assistant professor at the University of Washington. I'm in the Division of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. I'm a microbiologist, and my lab is at Harborview Medical Center.
So you are an academic researcher?
Right.
So what is the difference between an academic researcher versus an industrial researcher?
So when you get an advanced degree in biology, like a PhD, there's sort of two paths that you can take. You can start your own lab, or you can go into an industry position where you do research to develop cancer treatments or new antibiotics or COVID tests, things like that. The advantages of going into an academic position are that you get to decide what you work on, and you can let your own creativity kind of take charge. Like, you may be interested in a particular thing and then you get to follow that. Whereas in an industry position, it's all about making the company successful. And so there's some parts of it that are very basic science, research and development, trying to discover new things. But a lot of it is making a product that will be sold and will justify the money spent, invested in developing that product.
What kind of research are you currently working on?
So I'm a microbiologist. I study a particular bacteria called Mycoplasma genitalium. It's a sexually transmitted bacteria, so it causes urethritis in men and cervicitis in women, pelvic inflammatory disease, preterm birth, things like that. In women, it's largely asymptomatic, so you may have it and not know that you ever had it until maybe you're infertile 10, 15 years ago. Mycoplasma genitalium is sort of a weird bacteria. It's one of the smallest bacteria that we know about. It's really difficult to culture. I'm one of about 5 labs in the world that can culture it from human specimens. One of the really interesting things about this bacteria, one of the big problems, is it's really resistant to antibiotics, and about 10% of the infections in the United States are untreatable. So that's a big part of the research that I do, is trying to find new treatments to treat this organism.
What methods have been found to prevent this bacteria's harm? Like all sexually transmitted organisms, wearing condoms is the only way to really prevent it, and you need to be good at wearing a condom. There is actually a new strategy that's just being developed, and that is people that are highly sexually active are given, it's called doxypep, and they take a dose of an antibiotic called doxycycline right after they have sex, and that will in some cases prevent, if they've been exposed to a sexually transmitted organism, a bacteria, then it can sometimes prevent that organism from actually taking hold and actually infecting the patient. What biological functions does your research target?
So there's 2 sort of main areas that I study. One is antibiotic resistance and how can we counteract that, new treatments. And the other one is this organism causes persistent infections. So especially in women, you can have an infection that lasts for years. And we know that an immune response is mounted to the organism, so the infected person makes antibodies to the bacteria, and yet it is able to resist clearance by those antibodies. So I'm really interested in understanding how it's able to do this sort of immune evasion. Mm-hmm. And we know that at least part of it is due to its ability to change its surface. So you guys know, like with COVID, you get a COVID infection and the virus is cleared by your antibodies, but then here comes a new version of the virus, and those first antibodies don't recognize the new version. So M. genitalium works in a similar way, that it can change its surface, so those antibodies are not able to target it and kill it. It also seems to kind of go under the radar, that once an immune response is mounted, then it kind of tones everything down and just says, I'm just going to hang out here low, and you just never mind me. And in the meantime, it can be causing damage to your reproductive tract.
How does it go from your research to drugs that I could buy at a pharmacy?
Okay. So 2 paths. One is that you find a drug that we didn't know worked against M. genitalium that actually turns out to work. Yeah. So this particular drug is called tinidazole, and it was previously thought to only work against strict anaerobic bacteria, but I discovered that it actually works against M. genitalium. So that's great because that's a drug that's already made. It's in fact available generic, it's cheap, we know that it's safe, we know who can have it. And then the other strategy is to kind of start from scratch. And so I have a partnership with a guy at the University of Oklahoma who he has an enormous collection of fungi that he has collected from, it's a citizen science program. So people, a lot of schools will send him dirt, and then his lab cultures the fungi that are in that dirt. And then they grow those up, they actually grow them up on Cheerios. And then they sort of extract the compounds that those fungi are making. They send the extracts to me, and then I test it against our bacteria to see if it inhibits the growth of that bacteria. The way that M. genitalium does it is by changing its DNA sequence. It can change, so the azithromycin that I mentioned before, it can be 100% active, one dose and you're cured, or it can be absolutely inactive, and it's one nucleotide, one base change, an A to a G in the whole genome can make it totally resistant to azithromycin.
Do humans have a more advanced immune system than other animals?
It depends on the animal. I think that a lot of organisms have really sophisticated immune systems that we don't know a lot about. Humans have been studied a lot, but other organisms do have very clever immune systems. They have different ways of doing things. Even like a mammal, like there's camels and llamas, you know, they're pretty similar to people. You know, they've got, you know, arms and legs and hearts and kidneys, and they run around and breathe air and things like that, but their antibodies are completely different. Like, you guys maybe learned that antibodies look like little Y's, right? So camels don't have this, they just have this part, and it works terrific for them. And so we've actually, smart people have figured out how to use this part as a tool in the lab. So that's all. I did 8 years of college learning that. Let's see how to describe the differences. So fungi, we'll start with the big ones. Fungi, they have microscopic cells, but the organism itself you can often see, you know, it's fuzzy mold or it's a mushroom or something like that. Fungi are the most closely related to people of those group of microorganisms. They do a lot of the same processes the same way, which is one of the reasons why it's really hard to treat a fungal infection. You don't want to get a fungal infection, because to kill that fungus, you have to use drugs that are kind of gonna make you sick too. I used to tell, when I was teaching grade school kids about microbiology, I'd say there's tons and tons of different kinds of bacteria in there. Some of them make you sick, a few of them. Some of them help you, and the vast majority of them are just minding their own business.
Mother makes a great chicken soup, but is chicken soup actually good for the immune system? Why is that the go-to? What are some natural remedies that have proven to work?
It doesn't actually do much for your immune system. I think it makes you feel better psychologically.
Vitamins, obviously they're good for you, but
vitamins are good for you if you're vitamin deficient.
Okay.
People here in America, unless you have a really, really horrible diet, the vitamins don't do anything.
Is it possible to bring back an extinct species from life?
Maybe. I would be really excited to see that. I think there's a lot of species that there's no hope. You have to have their whole DNA complement, and then you have to somehow get that into a related species that can grow that thing. It's never gonna, like even a mammoth, that's not gonna be 100% a mammoth. It's gonna be part elephant, part mammoth. It'll be mammoth-like. But some of those things I think will be super cool. You're not gonna get dinosaurs back like Jurassic Park.
What was your favorite part of learning biology in high school and college?
I loved microbiology lab. I loved medical microbiology lab for two reasons. One is that you get to do all of these tests to figure out, you get these unknowns and you have to figure out what bacteria it is, and it's a very logical thing. Like, you look at it in the microscope, oh, okay, it's gram-positive and it's round, okay, I'm going to do these tests. And you get to an answer. I like getting an answer. It's very satisfying. It's like a puzzle, like doing the Wordle. You figure out what the word is. It's fun. The other reason why I really liked that class is because I had a really fantastic lab partner. I liked him so much that I married him.
What are some of the most important skills for success as a scientist or researcher?
Enthusiasm, curiosity, good sleep habits. I see with people your age that you'll be amazed how much learning your brain will do if you get a good night's sleep after you learn something.
Any tips for aspiring students of biology or upcoming scientists?
Yes. Get in a lab. Soon. As soon as you can. Like, if you're interested in biology and you go to college, you're going to major in biology or biochemistry or microbiology or something, right away find yourself a lab to volunteer in. You can get research credit for some of them. Sometimes you even get paid. I have a student, she started as a high schooler, 16-year-old, sent me an email out of the blue, like a cold call, just sent me an email. I want to get lab experience. And I was like, sure, come on in. She has been working with me now. She's finishing up her junior year as a molecular and cell biology major at the University of Washington. And she has been coming and getting lab experience all this time. And that's important for two reasons. One is that if you're going to major in biology or micro or biochemistry or something lab-based, you better find out really early if you like working in the lab. You know, like one time I spent an entire afternoon transferring small volumes from this plate to that plate, like literally 6 hours of boom, 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 boom. If that's not the sort of person you are, you want to find that out early. The second reason is the most interesting science that you can do is when you get an advanced degree. When you learn how to do research, you go to graduate school or medical school or dentist school or vet school. And all of those programs, you need to have a lot of lab experience to even be thinking of applying. So get that early on. The more experience you have, the better. If you want to go to graduate school, it's great if you could be an author on a publication, which takes a big investment.